Welcome to the podcast I'm Too Old for This, where we ask inspiring, uncomfortable, and sometimes rarely asked questions of people who've seen it all. Welcome back, everyone. This is part 2 of my conversation with Davison from Melville Cares. So while you're talking about that, you've made me think about one of my ideas, and it goes to how we could do things differently. Because assistive technology is one thing, but if you think about a automated vacuum cleaner, or I call them a Roomba, that's probably a trade name and I'll get in trouble, but never mind. We ask people to clean someone's floor, then they pay for it out of their packages. What about if we use their technology or their assistive technology, had it running? You don't want anyone tripping, of course, but given the skill set of these people, and domestic assistants in particular are the canary in the coal mine of what's going on. They see whether the fridge hasn't been emptied or the bin hasn't been emptied or the bedroom smells a bit, all that stuff. I'd love it if they had the time to just have a cuppa, make them a cuppa, or change the bed linen because they don't have to do, they can't always do that. I wonder, do you think we're in a position where we're brave enough to take ideas like that and do it, or do we see it too risky because of the regulation? Because I don't know. I mean, it's a very small example of the million things we could be doing.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it, with the regulation? Because it's kind of, I've always thought, we'll cut this for the next visit we have, but I've always thought that if you made decisions about why you were doing something that was to the benefit of the client, you could bear more risk. From a regulatory point of view, we should be able to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And, the dignity of risk, we all have risk. I really like the idea of the Roomba.
Well,
I like
an automated vacuum cleaner.
I really like that because it turns it on its head. Now, for some clients, that wouldn't work because the client wants you to come in and make sure the house is spotless, and I'm not that interested in having a chat. But for the vast majority, I think it would be a really good thing because often I think with domestic assistance, particularly when someone's new, that's an introductory service.
Yeah.
So it's not like, it's a different one. Like if we get someone who comes in to help us in the home, it's because we lead such busy lives that we have that. Now, even with that is really annoying when someone different comes every week. Oh, here's the mop, here's this, and in the end we'll do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But you kind of put on the thoughts of I'm a client now. First of all, I'm being called a client.
Yeah.
And then I've probably felt a bit of pressure through myself or family to get someone coming in.
Yeah, everyone's saying, Mum, we need you to get someone in. You're not cleaning properly. Or
exactly. So that person comes in. The person who's coming in their role is probably more than the cleaning, is just making me feel like I can trust them and I can share things with them. And actually I'm valued. Whilst someone else might think I'm losing something, you're seeing something in me that we're connecting.
I hate someone coming in my house, don't you?
Well, not if they're doing a good job cleaning. Quite like that. But I think I
wouldn't like 15 different people of different.
No. See, that would really annoy me. But you kind of imagine, God, if someone was coming in and I was having a shower.
Yeah, it must be exhausting too, having people coming in, or 3 or 4 different people a day. You often hear of that, don't you? If it's not well paced or there's multiple different providers, there's a real role for that kind of the trust and the relationship that's needed.
It is.
Can I change tack slightly? We've had lots of conversations about when some kind of support at home should happen or the very first services. So in order to make sure that people don't deteriorate.
Yeah.
I really even hate the language of deteriorate. Let's say are less able.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah. Support at home's been an interesting one. I mean, you now have not only the funder, the legislator, but you've got the political background.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different masters here. I think also some things right at the outset that I think have been very negative, both to the ageing person, to the people that, have their careers in aged care, was of course, the Royal Commission needed to happen. But the sector, the government, really needed to do a much better job in saying what was working well.
Yeah.
I know at the time I met people who had been considering aged care and now suddenly not.
I got frightened.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And people in aged care, I remember getting phone calls from friends who had family, particularly in residential aged care, saying, should we take mum out? Like, is this a real risk?
Yeah.
It was, oh, God. And then at the same time, the quality that we can provide absolutely depends upon our workforce.
And there's a limit to the workforce. The more you call it a negative environment, it was self-perpetuating, wasn't it?
It was.
I feel like we're just coming out of that.
I think so. I think
Maybe.
And then the sector, has taken a good battering too in terms of the pricing. In terms of particularly I know with res care, of course, it's in terms of what are you charging for people to come in, and why did Aunt Mabel pay $250 and Mum's been quoted $500,000?
Yeah.
I know that side. From a home care perspective, it suddenly came to overheads. So we're providing a service, we're funded by the government, we're regulated by that same government. We've got 50% of residential aged care providers are running at an operating loss. About 30% of home care providers are running at an operating loss. But the talk was about those really making a lot of money and driving Rolls Royces.
Yeah.
And I remember when the talk came out about someone paying, a third of their package in administration fees, and thinking, for a start, the language is all wrong. Secondly, there is a big cost providing this service, but one of those big costs is also the regulation that we've got to achieve. And then I thought, when have I been to any other service provider and they've had to explain to me their overhead costs?
Oh, yeah. When you
was the last
subcontract, you don't do it.
No. And when was the last time I went to a surgeon and said, right, well, I know you're going to do this for me, but, what do you charge in terms of your rental here? What do you charge in terms of this?
Yeah.
And they would look at you and they'd say, listen, you either value the service
or you don't.
For what you charge, or you don't. And for me, that was really negative, because I thought there's people in our community. I might be quite happy to pay $150 an hour for your service, because I know
you would have a good cleaner.
Oh, you would. I would, Kate. And we'd have a good laugh. But I might, and that's the open market.
Yeah,
you might then say with another service, $80 is what I'm paying, because I don't want to chat. Actually, I don't care if you send someone in that's different each time.
Yeah.
Whatever else, I value this. Now, for me, that's where innovation comes.
Yeah.
Because the only way you stay in business is I'm serving my market. And I'm going to have to do that really well, and I'm going to have to price it accordingly.
Yeah.
We always need to have services. It's the right of everyone to have services who needs it, irrespective of the financial side. So we always need to have that base of services, but then can go up, it can move.
Do you think that the new support home has got it right in terms of those things that there is an expectation for people who are not on a full pension, for example, to pay a contribution towards some of these services in their lifestyle and the personal care space?
I think there's no doubt we're moving much more to, a consumer philosophy, and there's no reason that those of us that can afford to pay for it shouldn't. And I think that's there's an absolute necessity. The government cannot keep funding it to that extent. But I think the fact that the government funds the vast majority of it also hampers the sector. So I think that's a good thing. I think in terms of doing it all at once, I don't think that's going to work too well. So, for example, we're going in. So the government was going to, and I'm specifically talking about home care, but the government was going to set the price parameters. Now that's being delayed for a year. That's fine. And in many cases, very good. But then a survey of a third of providers was put out in terms of, well, these are indicative prices, but not recommended. And we're not sure the details of where these came from, the third of providers. What size were the providers? What regions? Where does this really fit? So we're now working as an industry in terms of, well, what are you charging? What are we charging? What's going to be acceptable here?
I don't know how a consumer works it out. Client.
Absolutely. So we've got that happening, that we're going to now be charging an hourly rate, and at the same time, you're now going to personally contribute. So coming out with a rate of, let's say, $120 an hour, for you and I, for domestic assistance, geez, that's steep.
Yeah.
$120 an hour. And if I'm a fully self-funded retiree, what am I paying? 80% of that. Oh, geez, I'll just get the person down the road to come and clean. But I think what doesn't come into that conversation is that the person coming in to do the cleaning, if they know you, and generally that's how we'll keep clients in this, the relationship is there, they'll know you, they'll know the other services you're getting, they'll know what's important to you, they'll know where risks are, they'll know how to get you to join in, they'll know if someone lives with dementia, that there are certain things, how we encourage that person. They'll also notice that maybe I've been a bit off the last time. I'll go back to the service. I'll say that to the coordinator. The coordinator may then have a clinical team at their disposal that says, listen, go and have a look at Maria because I think something's not right. Or ring Maria's daughter. She's the next of kin. They know the bubble in which I live.
Yeah.
And whilst that can seem expensive, and for some people you'd be saying to them, listen, I don't think you need all of that yet.
Yeah.
Go to the person down the road. But for the vast majority of our clients, they are over the age of 84.
Yeah.
Living alone. 1 in 5 of our clients in a recent survey said they don't have another person, family or friend, that they can call on if something goes wrong.
Wow.
So we fill that
big
gap.
Yeah.
Now, so whilst 110, whatever we charge, going forward seems expensive, when you look at it from a community perspective.
Yeah, what price can you put on that? Because that
exactly
goes to your very first thought about creating a community and having the support systems around it. And so are we filling that gap on behalf of society to some extent?
We are.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you sit at the next to the reception team at any aged care organisation, I mean, I've listened to conversations where a receptionist has the same client ring every day because that client lives with dementia, and also is a bit fearful and says, is Mary coming today? Mary is coming today at 1:00. And then the receptionist, you can hear, says, and Mrs. Smith, what are you doing? Isn't it a lovely day? And they have a chat and Mrs. Smith gets off the phone, she's okay.
Yeah.
Now, and that's a part of the 120 an hour, 110 an hour. Yeah. Now, if that wasn't the case, Mrs. Smith could be quite agitated.
Yeah.
Something could happen. And then there's disconnection there. Yeah. Exactly right. And we go into this scene. So have we got it right? I think providers are really, in my experience, they're really committed to achieving good things for older people. So I think we'll make it work. I think clinical, it's a really interesting one. I like the idea of clinical being fully funded because it is expensive. The other side, though, for that is I think what hampers us at the moment is that very few of us think, I can't wait to get old and have aged care services. And so because of that, we generally wait until something happens. So the ability to build resilience, as much as we talk about enablement, reablement, restoration, whatever, our ability to do that is hampered. And the funding actually is set that the more or the less able you are, the more funding we'll get to care for you and the more viable we'll be. So I would love to see clinical services, keep that in terms of, I even wouldn't mind a bit of a contribution, but keep that. But then go right back to the beginning and say, what are the kind of services that people take up in the first instance, and how could we get them to do that earlier? So, for example, if we look at the social isolation in the community is becoming like the next
huge
it's
the big social
thing.
determinant.
Oh, it's just incredible. The other side is that I think is a real batter to someone's sense of self is losing their license.
Yeah.
So I
everybody hangs on to it for as long
they
as you would.
do.
I mean, I'll be hanging on to mine. Yeah.
And we'll see. I'll be out there getting yours. But so I'm thinking, so clinical right at that end, yeah, because that you need that. It's almost like Maslow's hierarchy. If we don't meet that, the rest can't be met. But I would also like to see transport and social support being subsidised much better. If we can get people, keep getting them out and about, even transport things, even if we have to be a bit more defined with it. If it was going transport free for medical appointments, let's get them going to the doctor. The infrastructure's already there. Let's not pay extra to have nurses going into the home.
And you could have it subsidised, as you said, partnerships with, good old Uber or anybody else for that.
You could.
Can be a...
Yeah. And the social support.
Yeah, that's right.
And I have a firm belief that if we can get in at the right time and do it in the right way, we can bolster people in terms of their perceived social support, and that will actually delay entry into other services. So a bit like, the NDIS started that model of, it's about community inclusion or about employment.
Yeah.
If we can get in there early enough, the impact on the whole of community is different.
Well, I think not only that, because I can see that you start to create the connections that you need around social supports then too. But then one of the other big discussions that we often have is about respite from home. And, there are some opportunities and subsidies, etc., or support from government around this. But really, if 1 in 4 people by 2050 is going to have dementia over 65, which is really scary. You or I.
Really scary. I know that's you. It is you or me.
Let's hope it's you.
Yeah. It's already you. I can see it. Yeah.
I wonder about family, the stepping away. If we've got to get this respite so people just have a bit of time away and learn some skills so that you can actually manage for that little bit longer before you go into care if you need to. I mean, we're doing some work around this at the moment, really successful in a hotel.
Yeah, that's right. You're doing some great stuff in that.
Yeah, but it's a one-off grant. I mean, I'll put a bit of a shout out. It's going really well. It's called Bright Respite. And what happens is with a partner or carer and person can go to a hotel for a long weekend. We do education with the carer. We do some activities with the person with dementia. But really, it's not systematised. It's ad hoc at the moment. And there are many providers who could do this.
Yeah.
And it goes to this idea that you could keep people at home longer because you're just not so worn out. I mean, those carers are family members, children, partners. You've got an 85-year-old looking after an 86-year-old. They're exhausted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also we've got also the young carers too. Carers come in all different sizes and shapes these days. I mean, I can't remember what the stats were, but it was the difference to our deficit. So all of the informal care that's being provided by family and friends, if half of that couldn't be provided and the government had to step in to provide that, the
financial impact
was bringing the country to its knees. Well, apart from the fact we don't have the people to do it.
Yeah.
But absolutely, the role that carers play, and whilst there are some supports for them, and I think places like Carers WA do a great job.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit the
and it's
the majority,
is it? Because I like the idea, if I took a philosophical stance that I will care for my parent as they age and not require anything of government, and it's my role as a daughter. The other side of it is I might still have to work, and so how do you subsidise that? So it must be a real tension making that decision around how you do it and what you're prepared to do.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
also I wonder, I mean, I think I'm in a classic mode of many people. So what am I, 54?
Just said it publicly, folks.
I did, 50, very young, 54. So I've got a mum who's about to turn 80, but then I've got two sons, 20 and 18.
Yeah.
So whilst
You're
that,
stuck in the middle.
I am, and that is, people have referred to it recently as the sandwich generation, but I think that's becoming more prevalent. The other side is, you know, there's a
You're
thing.
never giving up work, you know, that's what
Well, I know exactly. I'm never giving up work. But the other side is, I wonder, you know, I've had this discussion with a few carers in the past, particularly in the early days when I was more frontline. And whilst I think it's a brilliant thing to take care of your parent, there's also a lovely part of it. If you can get people coming in that your parent trusts maybe to shower, to do the personal care, you can keep that relationship.
You're not a carer, you're a daughter. Yeah, I think that the grief of that for a parent, of having your child have to care for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We totally underestimate that. The other thing that happens, I think, and you may have the same, we've got, I think it's about 60, maybe higher than that, % of our frontline staff are English is not their first language. And they're from cultures that don't ever have residential aged care.
Yeah.
They're all in the community. And maybe if you learn very early on in your you grow up knowing you're going to care for your parent and you have an expectation about that, it might be slightly different. But our culture is such that we're very interested only in our nuclear family. We don't do that kind of personal care or for our parent. We wouldn't dream of showering our parent really unless they absolutely needed to. So there's a big cultural shift for us as well. And I don't know if you find it, our carers are always surprised that we even have residential aged care. Everybody's cared for our home. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have that?
No,
you don't have
of course we don't have resi care.
Yeah.
So no. So but having worked in resi care, I remember particularly about 10 years ago when the mining boom was on in WA. Round one. And we had quite a few people from different backgrounds coming in and working. That was a really interesting time because they came in with different expectations, came in with different skill sets. So it was a real kind of shifting of the sand for us all in terms of the things that we had to really adapt. But I think I can see that, I can appreciate that. But I think that's changing a lot, isn't it, now, even internationally? I was reading something about in Japan and how the changing dynamics there in terms of care.
Well, the demography we've only got, I think it's 0.7, the birth rate's 0.7.
Yeah.
Might be in Japan. And so the next generation's just not going to have the carer support. That's where technology comes in because we have to think about what technologies can we use because we just won't have enough people to care for.
No, that's right. And no, quite right. And it was even, I was thinking the other day, actually it was funny when I was recently in the US and I was seeing these Teslas driving around and at first you look at it and you think, oh no, the person said the driver's sitting on the other side. Then you're like, no, they're not even there. So it was the driverless cars.
Oh my God.
But so they were quite common. Well, no, they weren't uncommon.
Yeah.
But it made me think too in terms of, you know, we've got to reduce costs. We've got to have people spending their time on things like, let's say, particularly our nurses, you know, if they can stop having to write all of these notes and tick so many boxes and actually do things that they feel rewarded for, we'll have more hope of, you know, them staying.
You made me think you're right. You made me think of two things. One is here we are talking about Uber. What about if we're sending our 85-year-olds out in driverless cars?
Well, that's right. I was thinking, I know.
Oh my God.
I know. Well, that's funny you say that. Jay actually remarked and said, "Gee, I don't know about your mum sitting in an Uber without the car. She'd be looking around. She'd be trying to take control."
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was an interesting thing in terms of you know, a nursing team going out, no one having to drive. It was, okay, you can do your notes, you could do teleconferences, you could do whatever else.
Well, even we're looking at some robotics potentially in the future, and at the moment they're used for social aspects. But I can see, in thinking about nursing staff, they will be able to remotely take temperatures and all those things just by visualising.
Yes, yeah.
And then alert people
Yeah.
if something's wrong.
Yeah.
But we have to get around such strict regulation and high-risk environment that to test that, you know, you're going out on a limb to have a go at that.
Yeah.
Would say we would have a go at it,
Yeah.
but it's a high-risk. You're taking a risk if
Yeah.
you do that as an organisation. So, Maria, just following on from that discussion about driverless cars and all the things we might do to try and make life easier for our clinicians in particular, what do you think about this challenge, which is maybe what the regulators are trying to get right, between the human connection and really needing that and people losing it, and how we might use technology? Do you have any sense of what we should do or where we should go?
You know, it's interesting, and I think it for me it comes back to we've worked in such a regulated environment, and as a sector we could have really been stronger in taking the reins.
Yeah.
And you know, the ideal for me would be where you are responding to clients in such a dynamic way that the regulators are actually chasing you rather than the other way around. And I think so. I think we've been too slow on that.
What you're doing, because
I mean,
forefront.
We're moving too quickly, but the results are good, but now the government better come in and put some rings around it. But we haven't. We've gone the other way.
Yeah, we've got nervous that we'd lose our licence.
We have.
Yeah.
And as much as we call, and from a government perspective, it's all about the rights of the client and the client at the forefront or at the centre. I think we've got to be really critical in terms of actually finding out from our clients what they most value. True. And also using really good research to say, and this is what's making the biggest difference. Because I think whilst we can't bring technology in for some things, I think from a client's point of view, they may say, that's fine. I don't care who's, you know, in the car.
Yeah.
That's fine. Bring technology in for that.
Or having a telehealth appointment.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But there might be other things where don't touch that.
Yeah.
That's a human part. That's really important. And I think it's almost we've got to go back to the essence. I hesitate using the term the basics, but it's where aged care really, particularly home care, started. We had no real model. It was we had to speak with clients and say, well, you want to stay home? What are you finding difficult? What could we put together? And I think this is our opportunity now, but using what we have known and being really sophisticated with it, because it's not all about, you know, we use relationship. It's not all just about feeling good. There's some good science behind what we can do to build relationships and help people in terms of their perception of how supported they are. So it's kind of bringing the best of
that's very true, because as you've been saying that, I mean, I jumped to, hey, we need coordination. That coordination may be virtual. It's whether it's valued by the client. Do they see that as a good human interaction or a technological one, or they don't care?
Yes.
You know?
Exactly. And then I go back to kind of research, and there was one pivotal point of the research in terms of my perceived social support. And social, when I use that, it's in the broader sense. It's not just about feeling that you've got friends. It's the basis on which we rest everything. And one of the crucial things was that I have someone that I can call for information, because I will never know it all. And I also have someone I can rely on who will respond when I need something.
Yeah.
When that is the case, the research shows the self-efficacy is much stronger. So not only do I believe I can do something, I will actually do it because I know, actually I'll push it a bit because I know if I get into trouble, you'll be there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think
But we don't build our services like that.
We don't.
No.
And so we've gone to the other side, which is when something's wrong with you, we'll come in now and it's about what you can't do that we'll
we'll put ring-fence everything you can do and not allow you to step over.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that goes to the dignity of risk. I mean, we're so scared about, as an industry now, about letting people live their lives and take chances because we may be punitively, or
Oh, absolutely. I'll have to account to it for a minister.
yeah, that's right.
If something happens. I mean, you live in fear. I mean, if things make you go cold, it's that I'll be in a ministerial inquiry or I'll be in front of the coroner.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is
Where
right at the other end.
to walk to the letterbox.
Well, exactly. or eat a runny egg.
Yeah.
And that never came across to me more so than during COVID. And I can remember for us it was, we must keep everyone safe. We must do this. And I remember a couple of clients and are you okay? We can get things to you. I remember one gentleman saying, listen, I've been through famines. I've been through wars. Me having to stay at home in my jammies, I'll be okay. And it was just one of those, and it's often that thing. Why do we forget the tenacity and the experience that these people we serve
and resilience.
have? The pure resilience. And we come in as though...
Yeah, paternalistically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And everything about the way that we are funded and the way we're set up is to have that role.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's about, I think you're quite right, it's about risk can overshadow.
Yeah.
And it can stop us from doing, any age, isn't it?
Oh.
We wouldn't do anything because of the risk. So I think if we can, our relationship with the funder and the regulator has to be such that we need to be accountable for what we're doing.
Yeah.
But most of all, we need to be accountable to the client before the government.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the balance where we've got, where we need to get back to.
We'll see you next time on I'm Too Old for This. I'm Too Old for This is brought to you by Brightwater. Brightwater creates communities where people thrive, connect and belong.